A recent report has revealed that no fewer than 13,346 people have been killed and 9,207 abducted nationwide since President Bola Tinubu assumed office on May 29, 2023. The report stated that the increase in violent crimes affecting 667 out of 774 local government areas in the country is linked to terrorism, banditry, farmer-herder conflict, and other social disturbances. The report by Beacon Consulting, a firm specializing in security risk management, stated that between May and December 2023, 5,802 were killed, while 2,754 were kidnapped. According to the report, the situation deteriorated further in 2024, with 7,544 deaths and 6,453 adoptions reported from January to September. Experts are increasingly concerned about the persistent security challenges and are calling for more decisive measures from President Tinubu. The security crisis is severe, security analyst Nnamdi Shive told Punch, adding that economic hardship has exacerbated the problems, adding to an already critical situation. During a security and peace summit hosted by the Northwest Governors Forum in Katsina State in July, President Tinubu characterized the ongoing insecurity, particularly in the Northwest, as inherited security compromise. He said that current banditry and insurgency issues were partly due to historical grievances of conflict-affected communities. Despite these insights, experts argue that a more effective strategy is needed. Shive further stressed the importance of securing Nigerian borders. The Northeast and Northwest borders need better control to prevent foreign elements from destabilizing local communities. However, he pointed out that insurgents are adapting by moving their operations to new areas. Security expert Colonel Yomi Dare also highlighted the impact of economic hardship and corruption on the security crisis. According to him, he said, economic difficulties have worsened the situation, compounding an already dire predicament in the country. The news report detailing the tragic loss of over 13,000 lives and the adoption of more than 9,000 people during President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's 15-month administration exposes the deep-rooted security challenges facing Nigeria. A closer examination of this issue from a critic perspective not only reveals the grim statistics but also highlights the complex interplay of factors like terrorism, banditry, economic hardship, and governance failure that have contributed to this crisis. To begin with, the sheer scale of violence. 13,346 people were killed and 9,207 people were adopted across 667 local government areas is staggering. This report paints a picture of a nation under siege with virtually no region left untouched by violence. The figures provided by Beacon Consulting break down the data into two phases. The first, from May to December 2023, saw 5,802 deaths and 2,754 kidnappings, while the second, from January to September 2024, witnessed an even grimmer scenario with 7,544 deaths and 6,453 adoptions. The escalation raises urgent questions about the effectiveness of the government response. From a critical point of view, or shall I say, from a critical standpoint, one must question why the situation deteriorated further in 2024, despite various efforts by the government to cope insecurity. This rise in violence during President Tinubu's administration suggests either a failure of strategy or an inability to adapt to the evolving tactics of criminal and insurgent groups. Critics may point out that while the government inherited significant security challenges, the lack of a clear, cohesive response underlines deeper structural flaws in Nigeria's security apparatus. President Tinubu's remark that the ongoing insecurity is a result of inherited security compromise may partially explain the scale of the crisis. Nigeria's struggles with terrorism, banditry, and farmer herders conflicts have historical roots, often tied to unresolved grievances, poverty, and the proliferation of arms in conflict-affected areas. However, while this acknowledgement is crucial, it raises the question: how long can an administration blame past failures before taking full ownership of current challenges? A critic might argue that Tinubu's administration has had over a year to address these problems. While the historical context is relevant, the focus should now be on proactive solutions rather than attributing blames. Simply acknowledging past grievances does not absolve the government of its responsibility to provide security for its citizens. Therefore, I might assert that this line of reasoning risks becoming a convenient excuse for inaction or inadequate responses. A recurring theme in the report is the exacerbating role of economic hardship. Security analyst Nnamdi Shive and Colonel Yomi Dare both highlight how economic difficulties have worsened the security crisis. The combination of high unemployment, inflation, and poor living conditions have created a fertile ground for insurgents and criminal gangs to recruit vulnerable individuals. Moreover, widespread poverty has fueled social unrest as desperate populations seek to survive by any means, including resorting to crime. These points bring up a broader critique: the inseparability of economic policy from national security. President Tinubu's administration has been criticized for not addressing the root causes of insecurity, namely the economic conditions that drive people towards violence. While securing borders and deploying more troops might help in the short term, without addressing poverty and inequality, any military gains are likely to be temporary. In this light, the government's failure to implement robust economic reforms is seen as contributing to the perpetuation of violence. Another significant issue raised in the report is the porous nature of Nigeria's borders, particularly in the northeast and northwest region. Shive emphasized the need for better border control, as foreign elements often exploit these weaknesses to destabilize local communities. Nigeria's borders with neighboring countries like Niger, Chad, and Cameroon have long been difficult to secure, allowing arms, insurgents, and illegal goods to flow into the country. A critic might also argue that while the importance of border security is well known, there has been little progress in this area. Border control requires not only military resources, but also cooperation with neighboring countries, investment in surveillance technology, and better training for security personnel. Given the ongoing nature of the border crisis, critics could also point out that this aspect of the government strategy has been neglected, leaving Nigeria vulnerable to external threats. Another key point raised in the report is that insurgents are not static, but rather are adapting to government countermeasures. While the administration may claim some success, such as the return of displaced persons to Borno State, the insurgents have shifted their operations to new areas. This adaptability of violent groups poses a serious challenge to the government strategy. Critics would also likely call for a more flexible and dynamic approach to combating these groups. A rigid military strategy that focuses solely on one region or one type of threat is bound to fail in the face of adaptable adversaries. To truly make progress, the government needs to anticipate this shift and respond with more creative, multifaceted approach that involve intelligence gathering, community engagement, and socio-economic interventions. Colonel Dare's mention of corruption as a contributing factor to the security crisis is particularly noteworthy. Corruption within Nigeria's security forces has long been a significant problem, with reports of soldiers and police officers accepting bribes or colliding with criminals. This endemic corruption undermines public trust in the government's ability to provide security and often allows criminal elements to operate with impunity. From a critical standpoint, this raises a fundamental question: can the Nigerian government truly tackle insecurity without first addressing the pervasive corruption within its rank? Many would argue that no amount of military spending on border control measures will be effective if the system remains compromised by corrupt officials. This issue needs to be confronted head-on with serious reforms aimed at accountability and transparency within the security forces. The report concludes by calling for more decisive measures from President Tinubu's administrations. But what exactly should these measures look like? Critics have offered various suggestions, ranging from better border control to economic reforms to anti-corruption efforts. However, the real question is whether the government has the political will to implement these changes. The scale of the crisis requires not just policy adjustment, but a fundamental shift in how the government approaches national security. Many will argue that the key to solving Nigeria's security crisis lies in a comprehensive long-term strategy that integrates military, economic, and social interventions. Simply reacting to each new crisis as it arises will not be enough. Instead, the government must adopt a proactive approach that addresses the root causes of the violence while simultaneously strengthening its security apparatus. This analysis leaves us with a critical question for the public. What do you think should be the next step in addressing Nigeria's security challenges? Are President Tinubu's policies enough, or is there more radical actions required? Should the focus be on military solutions, or do economic reforms hold the key? Your comments and opinions will help shape these ongoing discussions. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day.